Welcome to the third week of Job-Spiration UNCUT. I am Alyssa.
And I'm Allison.
We have some exciting things to talk about this week. This week's episode is the one-page resume myth debunked. It's going to get pretty interesting. We have some pretty good info for you guys this week. But first, like last week, we're going to start off with some job market updates from Allison.
Hey guys, so this is the info that's coming out of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think we're actually still kind of covering some data from April. I believe the next report is going to be released for us next week. So this is what we have. Employment in professional and business services continue to trend upward. Financial activities added 35,000 jobs in April, led by a gain in insurance carriers and related activities. Healthcare employment rose by 34,000 people in April, reflecting a gain in ambulatory health care services, as well as employment showing little change over the month in total over other major industries, including construction, information, other services, and government. And that's the data.
And that's the update. We're like our own news channel.
Right? I know.
Here for your job market updates weekly.
Really, that's what this feels like. Got like the hot news in front of me.
Yes. Well, to kind of dive into this week's episode of the one-page resume myth, first, what is it? I'm sure some of you maybe starting in the workforce have heard about it.
For sure.
Maybe even your teachers. I think my teachers were telling me, like, keep your resume one page in, like, high school when we were all starting to work.
Agree. Literally as far back as even thinking about my first job, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to put on the one page?
Right. And as time has gone on, it's like, how am I going to squish everything in like this really crazy format to get everything on one page?
Absolutely.
Well, we are here to tell you that it's a myth.
It is not true, you guys.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah. A lot of job seekers are still misled to believe that hiring managers and recruiters are not going to stop and read a resume that is more than one page.
Correct. Yeah.
However, I'm going to read everything you put on your resume.
Yes, I agree. I mean, one page may be preferred, but it is absolutely not required. So if you have something important to include, share it with us. We will not turn it away. There was something I saw, though, that says, try to read your entire resume in 10 seconds or less and see what you take away from it. And I think that's kind of cool to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of formatting will come into play.
Absolutely.
Looking at the skills and the education, as well as the work experience kind of lined up. That's where maybe like some bold or italics font could come into play.
Yep, I agree.
And
I'm sorry,
no, go. It's okay. Now, that's not to say to make your resume like 10 plus pages.
No, heck no.
Unless you have like a master's degree or a doctorate.
Well, yeah, like if
you earned that.
Totally, include it all, please. But no, you're right. I mean, I think it's like a book or anything else that you read. Filler is going to look like filler. So make sure your wording is meaningful. You can use bullet points to help with that. That way, maybe it kind of stops you from just writing paragraphs underneath your job descriptions. We really just want to know what you've done and the important parts of that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And as you're writing your resume, and we'll go into more details throughout this episode and throughout the season 1 of the podcast to kind of touch on how detailed you can make your resume, but as you are writing it, remember where you're applying to.
Yes.
Something that really stood out to me when I was looking is you can pull keywords out of the job description that you're applying to and incorporate that into your resume, whether it be previous duties, your skills. If you are somebody that likes to list your coursework under education, I know certain industries that we work with really prefer to see what types of classes you've completed. Science, biology, chemistry, for example. We have a client that really likes to see which classes you have completed.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And also the thing about like where you're applying, that matters too when it relates back to the one-page myth. Because if you are somebody who is in a huge city, or maybe you're applying for a very large company or a large corporation, when they put those job ads out, they get back thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of resumes. So, outside of standing out and also being the perfect person for them, you really may not want to bombard them with information that doesn't essentially just help you. So maybe keep that in mind as well. I mean, we're in Greenville, North Carolina. It's probably a bit smaller than a lot
Yeah.
of people are used to in a bigger area,
Even
but
our big companies, I feel like the larger hospitals or any large corporations kind of located around us,
Yep.
we're not as big as Washington, D.C.,
No
New York
way.
City, LA, you know?
Absolutely.
And to think about the job market today and being in the HR industry, how hard we were hit with the pandemic and, job cuts and everything. Right now, in these really big companies, there's only, sometimes one or two HR professionals that are reviewing all these resumes.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about over 1,000 resumes coming in for, say, like Amazon, for example, and you limit all of those resumes to two or three people to review.
Yeah.
I would go crazy.
I can't imagine.
I mean, and I want to give everybody a fair chance. I don't want to just like look at one and put it in a pile, look at another and put it in a different pile.
Totally.
I mean, as a recruiter, you want to give everybody that's applying a fair chance at reviewing their resume because, I mean, they're putting in the work to put a resume together.
Yep.
Which, believe me, it can be frustrating to figure out where to start. But that's what we are here for. We're here to help you.
Yes, and it's really not that complicated. That kind of like brings us back to you talking about keywords again too, and just
Yeah.
how important they really are. Those keywords, even if they're not in your job description, there's other places you can put them throughout your resume too. I mean, format is a big thing for resumes, but at the end of the day, it's really not. I think the perception is bigger than what it actually is for us. So maybe even like your skills section. There's a
Yeah.
skills section at the bottom for in a lot of different formats of resumes. Include those big keywords there and maybe be a little selective about those if you can.
Yeah, don't put my favorite food is pasta. Like
Okay, Alyssa, just
No,
call me out, why don't you?
hey, I love pasta just as much as the next gal, but in my short time in the staffing industry, I have seen some really interesting things on resumes. Please don't be afraid to edit your resume to tailor every single different type of position you're applying to. I mean, put in that work. I mean, like put in that work if you really want this position.
Definitely.
And that's the first step. You are representing yourself on your resume. And it's really important to show how you are going to really be best suited for that position. Of course, along with your skills and prior education, experience, all that kind of thing. But as far as those keywords in the skills section, make sure they do apply to what you are applying to. Because honestly, dude, I've seen resumes where the skill set says the craziest thing.
I know. And the ones that kind of get me the most are like the basic skills that I think we all have, And then they sort of like sprinkle them in there like Salt Bay. Like we're just like not going to look over the fact this person knows how to read. Like we appreciate that, but
I'm very glad that you're literate.
yeah,
It's a great skill.
but it's probably not the best skill to include if you're trying to like, I don't know, apply for a shipping position or something. Like
Yeah.
something else is better used there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not, your favorite rigatoni noodle or whatever. Like
I love all the noodle talk. Please keep it coming.
we're gonna talk about noodles every episode.
That'll be next episode. Sorry, a full episode. No, keywords really important. And
relevant keywords.
from our perspective too, keywords are also important because we can search your resume once you're in our database by those keywords.
Yes, that's something that a lot of HR databases do have. we actually do Boolean searches on the daily to find resumes and candidates that may have recently applied and may have even applied several years back that we want to touch base with. So I think that is probably one of the biggest things that I like to see. Keywords,
Yes.
relevant vocabulary to what you're applying to. Of course, that being said, do not copy and paste your previous job description.
Oh no. Please don't do that.
Oh, no.
No. We don't want it. We know. It's
know.
copy and pasted.
You can
We
tell.
get it. We see it. We're reading it.
I'm glad
Just
that
don't.
you appreciate the wording of your previous HR representative so much that you want to incorporate it in your resume.
Yeah, or the most reliable site you found on Google as you're like throwing this together last minute.
Right.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's flattering, but please use your own words. Don't falsify.
Yeah.
Like, we all here at Nice Personnel have encountered some really, really interesting things with resumes. And honestly, some of them were pure accidents. Sometimes people don't even realize, they're uploading things so quickly, they're saving their files so quickly, and they just want to get their application done.
Yeah.
And I love that people are so eager to apply, but take a second, take a step back, and look at what you're sending to the recruiter, the hiring manager. Don't be afraid to have a friend, a parent, a family member look over it, because we're gonna pick out those little things.
We're gonna search that resume for those keywords, and if you put accounting or payroll as a skill that you've done, but maybe all you ever did was like cut a check for somebody one time, that doesn't count. So when we're running this search and you're popping up in our 30-year-old database with so many people that may be better qualified, but we're giving you a call and then you're like freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not qualified to be a payroll analyst. That is not a skill I possess.
Here's the biggest one, a bookkeeper.
Yes. And what that means to you. That could be a whole episode in itself.
Oh my God, it really could be an episode on what a true
what does
bookkeeper
that really
is.
mean? Not what you think it means.
What is a bookkeeper to you all? Because we have, and I'm not knocking the ones that are, the physical book keeping, book space keeping.
I'm just thinking about conversations that are just flying through my head right now.
Yeah.
All of these examples. I can't tell you, but they're there.
Yeah. I'm not knocking either jobs. I'm just knocking the confusion of the job title.
What it actually means.
And what they do. But you know what? Both hardworking positions.
Absolutely.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
There's also the kind of like, I guess, would you call it an about me section? I don't like to call it introductory because I feel like that's more of like the objective section, which we haven't really talked about. Not super necessary.
You don't have to do one. Honestly, there's tons of resumes that we look at daily that don't have objective sections. And I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get upset. Most of the time, coming from a staffing agency, most of the time your skill set, your education, and any relevant professional work experience, that's what I want to send to our client. So they can see, oh my gosh, they've done this same job for 5 years. They have this skill set. They've completed this education. The objective section is, I feel like, pretty similar to an introductory or like an about me.
Yeah, I mean, basically we know what your objective is, right?
Right.
We know you want this job. That's why you're applying. Anything else in that's like personal, that can be saved for your cover letter.
Yeah.
If your resume is really strong, or otherwise, that can kind of go in your interests section, which sometimes can be at the bottom too, near skills and after your experience. That allows us to see a little bit more about yourself, which doesn't have to be at the top of your resume. Let your experience sort of speak for itself, and then introduce yourself, right?
True extended form of a format will include objective and then a professional summary, which is something that you can kind of do a little bit more of an about me, summarize your education and your goals and your work experience and how that makes you a professional candidate for the job you're applying for. And then after that, education, skills, professional work experience.
Yeah.
Some people like to add references on at the end. Some don't. I don't really have a preference personally. I know that there are some companies that would rather your references go in a separate section.
Yeah.
So you almost just save yourself the time. You don't have to add it to the resume.
I would agree with that.
Definitely have references established though. That way, have a group of people that know like they're a reference for you. That way they would be prepared to take a professional phone call from a potential employer.
If you even need it.
Yeah, that's true. Some people don't even do reference checks nowadays.
Very true. So ultimately, if I want to learn a little bit about you, I'm going to sum it up for you guys. I want to learn it in the interests personally.
Yeah.
And that's just honestly my opinion, but I think that it's a great opportunity for you to kind of get a little personal info in there. You're not just a faceless resume at that point. I think that's important.
I do too. You want to really put yourself into that resume. That's not to say plaster your life on a piece of paper.
No, I don't want to read like a full paragraph about who you are and what your favorite TV show is and your favorite food. Let's just like keep it to just the pasta conversation.
We can talk about that once we're hired.
Yeah, for sure. I guess too, like, we don't need to know every job you've ever worked. Would you agree with that?
I really don't want to know about the job you had at 7-Eleven for 2.5 weeks.
Agreed. Unless it's still very important in where you've been recently. But if it's something that you did, gosh, what even, like 10 plus years ago, and you've held more relevant jobs since then, or even, I don't even know. I don't want to say more important because I truly believe every job you've ever worked is important, right?
Yeah.
It helps. If nothing else, it's more of a stepping stone to get you from where you were, or maybe where you were just blessed to start, but to where you want to go. All of that is worth recognition, but for an employer who's looking at a specific job they're trying to fill and looking at you in front of them, they want to know why you fit that. And outside of that, just who you are and what you've done, again, in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think another thing to add to that is to see your growth.
Yeah.
Like your professional growth. For example, I'll use myself. I started out in retail, and as you look at my resume, you can kind of tell how I've grown from retail background. I tried food service, went back to retail.
It happens.
But I started out in one of those entry-level positions, worked my way up, went to school, have military experience, and then my professional experience, and it shows the level of growth that I have had.
Yes.
Kind of in my own way. But while I'm kind of touching on professional development, I want to mention keeping your resume in something called reverse chronological order.
It's actually very important.
Yes. I really love to see resumes that are in this. And
explain what that means, though, to somebody who may just be like, what the heck?
Yeah, so reverse chronological order is to start showing me what you're presently doing.
Okay.
Whereas chronological order would be first to last.
Yeah.
So I want to see what you're currently working and work your way back into history in that order. It's very important to show your present work experience because more than likely it's very relevant to what you're applying to.
Yeah. Right.
Or career change. I mean, it shows what present skill sets you are working in or have most recently worked in. And if you have taken some time off of work, that's okay. You can also list, you don't have to list, but you can list in bullet points between jobs.
Yeah.
I know I have on my resume, I have like a gap, and I wrote a bullet point, time off work due to military deployment. I mean, if you look at that 1.5 years on my resume, you'd be like, where did this girl go?
She's like, I took an extended vacay
Yeah.
for a year and a half.
Italy,
No.
at the beach. No, I wish. And if you're not able to put those gaps in, don't be afraid to add something on there that you're willing to discuss that in your resume.
Yeah.
Some people have to take time off for childcare. I mean,
A plethora of personal reasons.
Yeah.
No one, as an employer, is really going to press you on those.
no
So,
one's gonna knock gaps as much now because of COVID.
definitely.
So I think now is the time to not be afraid to submit your resume if you have, years of gaps in your resume. But if you're really concerned about them, don't be afraid to add that little bullet point. And you can Google professional wording about what you're trying to say. I've done it. I'm sure Allison has done it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you're just not sure how to put the words together to present it in a professional way.
It's funny this is coming up in this conversation too, because I actually read something. I'll see if I can maybe find it and we can link it when we post. But it had to do with, this is like the first time ever that gaps are really like widely acceptable.
Yeah.
So I feel, and it's like you said, because of COVID, but
Mhm.
also I think it's just really changed the way that recruiters and just people in general are looking at personal time outside of work and
Yes.
maybe just making big life decisions, even if that meant that you're somebody who has stuck with a job for the last 10 years, but we see the last 2, something looks totally different. No
Mhm.
one's going to fault you for deciding to do the best thing for you now in your life or ever, but it's really cool because I think that that kind of goes with our one-page myth. Like,
Yeah.
that's always been a myth. You can't have a gap. Nobody will hire you.
Right.
Like, that's not true.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you have a strong skill set and strong work history,
Yep.
your gap, and you're willing to bring that to the table, your gap is the least of my worries.
Definitely.
If you're eager to work, ready to come to the table and take on a new position, that's what's important. And just kind of to touch back onto something big with the one-page resume myth, don't limit your qualifications.
No.
I know Allison kind of touched on that in the beginning. We want to see everything. Like, tell me about, a really, really good accomplishment that you've had in this job that you've been in for however long.
Yeah.
Tell me about the results of that achievement, changes you've implemented, if you've had an impact on revenue for the company.
It's huge.
Yeah, tell me that in that job description. And I know that kind of goes back and forth with, we don't want to see that job you had for a couple of weeks.
Right, but if it speaks to like how you gained your customer
Right.
service experience
Yeah.
or something really major at a building block in who you are and what now you've done,
Yeah,
we want to know about it. If
definitely.
it's noteworthy and important to you, it's important to us.
Yes.
So,
And if you're really not sure, email Allison or I, and we would be
Please.
happy to take a look at your resume, even give you some resume advice.
mhm.
Because this is your open door into the job market. I mean,
I agree. And I like to see though that like what you submit first and then like let me give some feedback. I don't love the approach of like, well, will you just help me write it? Like show me
agreed.
what you came up with on your own and I will
Yes.
totally help you make it better from our perspective of what we see and what we
Mhm.
think can maybe be, I don't know, a tip to help you be successful.
Yeah.
But I think that you already have a really good idea of your anecdotal experiences that matter and your skill set that matters, and just the way you write your resume is going to be really personal, and I think that you should try. Don't be intimidated. Again, like we've said, the format really doesn't matter that much. It's
Yeah.
more about the content. So put it to paper and we would love to help you chop it up or add some things, whatever you think needs to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, we touched on so much.
I know. Well, I mean, God, talking about resumes in general, I feel like there's a lot to discuss.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's literally, it opens your door into the job market. It's your life on paper in fancy format,
it totally is.
but not too fancy. We don't want any of that, those crazy swirls.
Oh my gosh, or like cursive looking font.
No.
Let's keep it simple.
Do like Arial. Times New Roman is a good old good old font.
Not too small, not too big.
Not everything has to be bold.
No.
I'm so happy, like, when I read a resume and everything's in bold, or there's a lot of things in bold, I want to read it like I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like, I'm so
I
happy you're
agree.
excited to give me your resume, but
You're right.
we need to make it look a little bit more toned down.
Totally. And I would suggest too, when you're submitting something, if you can, maybe submit a PDF.
Yes.
Like, we love those.
I love a PDF. If you can't do PDF, a Microsoft Word document specifically.
Yes.
I mean, I have a lot of friends that make their resumes in Google Docs,
Mm-hmm.
and Google Docs has the capability to download it as a Microsoft Word document or as a PDF.
Yeah.
So that's probably a recommendation of mine that I'd like to make if you need help.
Agree. The only thing kind of scary about Word sometimes is it may format a little differently for
Mhm.
us than it looks for you. But again, if you're keeping it simple and you're not worried about the fancy format in general, it shouldn't be a really big issue. But
Yeah.
that is why PDF would be preferred over
Yeah.
Word if you have the availability to do so. But,
Definitely.
and one last thing about that, I would also say, it's kind of nitpicky, but we are noticing details and we are trying to, figure out who you are as a person. And I would say it looks a little irresponsible to name your resume something kind of funky. Like, you know what I mean?
I've only seen it a handful of times.
Have you really?
But I'm curious, what have you seen recently?
Well, just ones that have dates on them, those are kind of problematic for me.
Like resume 3/27,
Yeah.
2022.
Allison Donadio resume 2018. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
So I just keep it simple. I'd
Yeah.
say just say like your first and last name, resume. And
Yeah.
if you've got like 50 of those on your desktop, we'll never know.
That's true.
You just figure that out amongst
You send
yourselves.
us
But
the best one or the one that you want to send.
Yep. That would be my last little tidbit on that.
Well, I know we touched on a lot, and we definitely plan to kind of circle back onto resume writing tips at some point during this season 1 of our
Yeah.
podcast, because, I mean, the tips are endless. If you guys have questions, comment on this post on Facebook, or you feel free to email us if you don't want to comment publicly, but interview tips, resume tips, what to wear to interviews. We have a ton of really good things coming your way.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
It's a lot of content.
I know.
Hang with us, guys. We're still
Yeah.
kind of getting, in the groove. I feel like we'll have bigger episodes and smaller episodes, but everything will be worth your time.
Yes.
There'll always be something to learn. Hopefully you'll giggle
Always.
with us a little bit because we do a lot of that.
And we talk about noodles a lot.
Why would you not want
I
to be
had-
a part of a noodle
I had
conversation?
pasta for dinner last night,
Alyssa,
so maybe I should have
Girl
talked
after my
about
own
those
heart.
noodles. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for tuning in to week 3 of Job-Spiration. And
Uncut.
we will see you next week.
Next week. Bye.
Bye.